Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And we are almost to the regular season. Now we're almost finished our season previews. We're up to the Edmonton Oilers here. I've got Brian Swane here, who covers the Oilers. He's been covering for the Oilers for quite a while, as far back as I can remember, to joining the site. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, it's been a while. It's good to join you again, Matthew. We used to have some fun doing the Oilers podcast back in the day. So yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
For sure. Yeah, the Edmonton Oilers, of course, made it to the Stanley Cup final last season. Unfortunately, I fell one goal short, one win short of winning the cup, but made it there. And they have a really strong team again going into this season. So, let's just jump right in and talk about their forward group going in. Of course, still led by Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, the big two, probably two of the best in the NHL in the world. They're still the centerpiece of this team. They did add a couple guys, though, actually a few. They are actually really busy throughout the offseason, not just free agent signings, but that offer sheet that the Blues, of course, threw a wrench into things. And then we got Evander Kane getting surgery, so he won't be back until what they say, March or April. So lots of stuff to really dive into here for the forward. So, well, let's just start with the new additions first. And, let's start with Jeff Skinner. Probably one of the bigger guys, of course, signed from being bought out from Buffalo Sabres. What do you think Skinner is going to bring to this group? I mean, he's going to be in the top six. Where do you see him fitting in?
Yeah, he'll likely be on probably on the second line with Draisaitl and Viktor Arvidsson, who we'll probably touch on as well, one of the other new additions, which will be very interesting to see. Jeff Skinner is a guy that I think he's a very intriguing story. I think it's probably well known that one of he's played in the league for so long and has not been in the playoffs yet, not a single playoff game in his entire career. So he's hungry to, one of the reasons he's come to Edmonton, obviously, to get that playoff experience and hopefully a lot more than just the playoff series, but a
Mhm.
few rounds. But I'll be interested to see what he's got. I mean, he's not the youngest guy anymore.
Mhm.
Obviously, I don't think he's played with this level of talent before either. So, he's when the Oilers signed him, I thought it was interesting to me because I didn't necessarily think he checked any boxes that they needed. He'll probably give you 20 goals again. He might give you
Mhm.
25 or 30. That's not necessarily what this team needs. If you were to make a list of a laundry list to start the season or the off season of the needs the others need to fill, I don't think goal scoring is one of them.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, he just brings another more offensive firepower, and it'd be fun to see how he fits in, especially playing on the wing next to Draisaitl.
Yeah, I mean, of course, he's probably may see some time with McDavid. Who knows whether they like juggle the lines around? But it gives a lot of options in that top six and top nine, too. So you mentioned Viktor Arvidsson, of course, that he's signed in free agency from the LA Kings. Was injured most of last season, so he didn't have the very good season. Although when he did come back, he was pretty productive. I mean, close to a point a game when he came back. But what do you think he's going to bring? I mean, obviously, like you said, he's probably going to play on that second line with Draisaitl. So Draisaitl is going to have two new wingers this
Mm-hmm.
season. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see that.
Yeah, I mean, he's been used to a rotating cast of characters throughout his career, so I think he'll adjust just fine. But the biggest benefit of Arvidsson joining the Oilers might be the fact they don't have to see him in the playoffs anymore
Yeah.
because the last three springs when they played the Kings, he's been the biggest thorn in their side, probably. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see him on the other side of things now. Again, another guy I think getting on later in his career, looking for come for a chance to win, and probably took less money than he could have got elsewhere. Um, I think he's a better addition to the Oilers than Skinner. I think he'll be more effective. I think he's checked a couple more boxes. A little bit better two-way player. I think he's got a little bit more speed yet too. So I think he's going to fit in very nicely alongside Draisaitl. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. But you're right. I mean, the Oilers, we could be seeing the line shifting a lot. I'm not sure if we'll necessarily see Arvidsson playing as much with McDavid, whereas Skinner might get a few looks there. But I think he's really the perfect second line winger for this team.
Yeah, I mean, Arvidsson's one of those undersized guys that seems to thrive even though he is a smaller player. I mean, of course, Draisaitl's a pretty big guy, so I mean, you're playing on a line that you're going to be insulated. Although Arvidsson doesn't seem to have a problem with his size. I mean, he's still pretty productive. He hasn't scored a lot lately, but because of injuries, stuff like that. His career high, I believe, was in Nashville. He was a 30 goal scorer there,
Yeah.
but hasn't hit that since. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but again, he's going to play with Draisaitl and he'll get a lot of opportunities to score goals. So I could see him actually approaching the 30 goal mark again with Draisaitl,
Yeah.
especially if he stays healthy, right?
Yeah, he could. And again, I mean, like I say, with the Oilers with this team, they don't need they don't need these guys to come in and score 25 or 30 goals because you're still gonna, I'm sure we'll get into Zach Hyman yet and the Nugent Hopkins, but I mean, you're still gonna get your 30, 40, 50 goals from McDavid and Draisaitl and the other
Yeah.
guys that chipped in last year. They're all back. So Arvidsson doesn't need to come in. I think that's a nice thing about these veterans, right? They're
Mhm.
not being brought in to come in, and they don't have to become the guys that they were when they were 25 years old again.
Right.
They can play that complementary role, and I do have confidence that Arvidsson, provided as you pointed out, if he stays healthy, can do that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the bottom six, which saw some additions too. They've returned, of course, Adam Henrique re-signed. He's back. You've got a couple, Corey Perry, same thing. They did bring in Vasily Podkolzin from the Vancouver Canucks. I know him very well in Vancouver here. I was not happy when they traded him because I thought he should be given more of an opportunity in the lineup, but the writing was kind of on the wall. He's probably going to have to be put on waivers, and most likely someone would claim him. So they got an asset for him. He's the only real new addition in the bottom six. Do you see Podkolzin? I mean, he had a pretty good preseason game, his first preseason game. What have you seen from him already so far in his Oilers tenure here?
Yeah, people are excited about him. They're really excited about him. I think, as you mentioned, he looked really good. I think he's played in two preseason games. I think he's played in both of them so far for the Oilers. The other night, the second game, he did look really good. Um, he's I think people are just there. He brings some elements that this team actually didn't have, which is saying something because they were a fairly complete team, and he just seems to, and you can know this very well. He just seems like a really personable, fun
Mhm.
guy to have on the team. Like I think people are just falling in love with this kid. So I like his game. There's a lot of things that excites me about him, and I think you put him around the right players. And what is he? 23, I think.
23,
Still
yeah.
some 23, so still really young. Yeah, I was surprised. I think that was a pretty good trade. I could see how people in Vancouver might not be so happy that he was gone, but I think he's going to get an opportunity here, and we'll see what he does with it.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think he was given enough of an opportunity in Vancouver. I mean, of course, in his rookie season, he had a really good season. But after that, he kind of was just put in the minors and thinking I was thinking he was going to have a Niels Höglander type season this year because really good season in the AHL last season. That's what happened to Höglander. He came back and had a really good, of course, 24 goals last season. So I can see a same trajectory for Podkolzin. I don't know where he's going to play. Like he's going to play mostly in the bottom six. I mean, or in the power play. I'm not sure. Where do you see? I mean, Podkolzin, is he going to most likely play in
Yeah,
the bottom six? Or
yeah, that's the thing too, right? And I'm still kind of getting the feel for him myself too. I don't know if he's the guy that is most effective if he has to play in the top six to be most effective. Can he be playing the style of game that he does be effective playing 10 or 11 minutes a game on the fourth line, or is he suitable for a third line role? I'm not sure, but he really excites me. It's funny too. You bring up the trade. When I saw that, I thought, is there something that I'm missing here? Like, is there some kind of like off ice stuff or something? Like, it was almost kind of like a too good to be true kind of
Mhm.
thing. Like, why are the Canucks giving up on this guy? Is it, I don't know if it's a buyer beware situation, but man, like I say, he just seems like a really likable, personable guy, and he's winning fans over here a lot.
I think mostly it was a numbers game in Vancouver because they brought in so many forwards in the offseason that he would probably have to go, well, he would have to go through waivers. Unless
Mhm.
he like blew everyone away and he forced a veteran out. I think that was the only way. And I mean, he'd probably deserved a bit better here, but he's going to get a great opportunity in Edmonton, and I wish him well because I really like him too. I was pushing for him for, I mean, many years before when he's in the KHL stuck over there. And then he came. Yeah, he's a very likable guy. I really like his personality, and he showed a lot of physicality in the last when he was called up last
Mhm.
season for the Canucks. That he showed a lot more. Uh, of that physical game. So I think he can be a pretty good bottom six guy. So
And I'll say this too: you listen to him talk, he seems hungry, he seems driven. So I think there's an awful lot of motivation. Not to suggest that there wasn't there before, but he really seems hungry to come in and earn himself an opportunity and maybe prove any naysayers wrong.
mhm. I mean, he was a high first round pick, so I mean, he does have a lot of skill. So I think he can be pretty good for the Oilers. So I'm hoping he is because like I say, I want him to succeed. Just he just can't score against the Canucks. That's all. All right, let's the rest of the forwards. Of course, we know a lot of their big players. Do you have any storylines kind of going into this season for the forward group? Of course, we mentioned Evander Kane off the top. He's not going to be available probably till late in the season. Is that an issue not having him? I mean, what other storylines are you kind of looking at in the forwards here?
Well, I mean, the fact that I hate to say it, but I mean, some people are probably almost, I won't say happy about the Kane injury, but at least happy with the clarification of it because, they can put him on LTIR and that's going to clear up some cap space for this team that is dealing with that. So I think yeah, who knows? Kane wasn't quite the same player that he was, or last season that he had been the previous 2 years. I'm not sure if he's at that same level now. So him not being in the lineup might not be quite the subtraction that you might think it
Mhm.
is to begin with. But as far as storylines go, I think there's a couple interesting ones emerging here in the preseason so far. They brought in Mike Hoffman on a PTO, which is another guy where it's like, well, another guy getting into his late 20s, early 30s and had some success, 20, 25 goals, and, hasn't been with a lot of winning organizations. And he kind of is along the same story as like
Mhm.
a Jeff Skinner. But he has looked good in the preseason so far too. So I'm really curious to see if he might be able to win a spot in the bottom six for the Oilers. 'Cause he's another guy that like you could see him still having 15, 20 goals in the
Mhm.
tank for a season easily. He scored in the Oilers' last preseason game. Like I say, I think he's looked pretty good. That's an intriguing story to me. Um, Third line, which kind of came
Mhm.
together in the Stanley Cup final last year, and the Oilers made sure they got all three of them re-signed this offseason, made sure to keep them together. And that'd be Connor Brown, Adam Henrique, and Matthias Janmark. And those guys were just dynamite together. Now it was, a very limited sample size so far,
Mhm.
but they really helped turn the tide in that Stanley Cup final series after the Oilers went down 3-0. So the Oilers haven't had a consistently effective third
Mhm.
line in quite a while, maybe since the 1980s. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The 1990s with kind of the rotating cast of Mike Greer, Todd Musha, Ethan Moreau, and those guys were really good. But
Mhm.
so if they can kind of solidify that third line, have that be a consistent thing throughout the season, and then moving into the playoffs, that's an exciting thing for this
Mhm.
team. I think to kind of stabilize something that has been an issue in the past. So that's a storyline to watch too. And probably another one would be Matthew Savoy, who they
Mhm.
traded for from Buffalo.
Oh yeah.
If he can win a spot as well, he's kind of been up and down so far in the preseason. So another former high first round pick that they kind of got. Maybe at a bargain price on a trade this
Mhm.
summer. So yeah, so there's actually some really real good battles for spots at the bottom of the forward roster.
Man, Oilers were busy. I totally forgot about Matt Savoy. I know he's a pretty big trade there too in the offseason. So lots of changes in the forward group and lots of things to watch for as we go through the preseason, beginning of the season stuff too. So yeah. Speaking of storylines, the defense has quite a few as well. Of course,
Mhm.
they lost Broberg in that offer sheet as well. They got Ty Emberson from the San Jose Sharks. He's been talked about quite a bit in the last couple weeks here. What do you think about this defense group? Is it better, worse, the same? I mean, what do you think going into this season?
It's like it's kind of it. There's five guys that you know are going to play on the team, and then there's about seven guys after that that could be rotating in and out. I mean, you've got Nurse, Ekholm, um, Bouchard would be that would be the top of the Kulak as well. And then after that, like they brought in so many guys in this offseason. There's Troy Stetcher, there's Brown, Ben Gleason was in the minors last year, but there's Ben Gleason as well. They acquired Cam Dineen, Connor Carrick is in the mix. It's like any of these guys could be on the roster on opening night, and any of them could be in Bakersfield that could end up
Yeah,
on waivers and get claimed somewhere else. You mentioned Troy Stetcher as well. Or no, you mentioned Emerson. I'm
yeah,
great. I'm mentioning Stetcher. So
yeah,
like, there's all these guys, and it's really like, I don't know. You would hope it's kind of like almost a quantity over quality kind of thing. But you would hope out of all these guys, one or two, because a lot of them are still kind of fairly young. And
Mhm.
also they brought in the Travis Dermott on a
Yeah.
PTO as well. So it's we'll see who ends up sticking around. It'll be interesting to see. Um, I don't know if any of these guys can actually give them what they're looking for, which is a reliable third pairing. Um, yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence in that yet, but there's so many of them, and so many of them are still young enough. They may still be haven't realized their full potential yet. You hope that maybe one or two of them can emerge and take a big step up this year.
I mean, of course, they were hoping that Philip Broberg was going to be the guy because he had such a great playoffs.
Yeah, yeah.
But of course, the Blues thought so too, and and grabbed him up. But yeah, and then Vincent Desharnais, of course, signed with the Canucks here. So there is some interesting kind of things to see how it all kind of fits early on in the season. Of course, you
I
know what you're
I'll
going to
say
get.
this: I was really disappointed to see him go. I think you guys will fall in love if you haven't already with Darnay in Vancouver.
Oh, I like his personality already. I haven't
Yeah.
seen him play yet. He's playing in the preseason game tonight. But yeah, his personality interviews and stuff, he seemed a great guy for the dressing room. So I'm excited to see what he can bring on the ice. 'Cause I did like, I mean, watching him from a standpoint of opposition. He was always noticeable whenever playing the Oilers. So he's a big guy. So I mean that's
Mhm.
we'll see how he can fit into Vancouver here. All right, moving to the goaltending. This group has stayed the same. I mean, Stuart Skinner comes back. Calvin Pickard now is the full-time backup. I, Jack Campbell, of course, is gone. He was bought out. What do you think about this tandem? Is it a good enough tandem for a playoff team that's pretty much everyone's kind of hoping that they are going to be Stanley Cup bound this season?
Yeah, I mean they kind of established themselves as the duo after Campbell was sent down. I believe it was last November, and I want to say it was kind of around December when Pickard established himself as the number two on the team. So, I mean, the Oilers pretty much had the best record in the NHL from December on, and then they made a run to the Stanley Cup Finals with this duo.
Mm.
So based on that 5 or 6 months, you think that this is exactly what you need. I mean, I think Skinner has firmly established himself now as a number one and a number one on a team that can win a championship. No concerns about him. Um, Pickard, I'm still a little uncertain about. I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. Is it, did he just kind of catch lightning in the bottle last year? This is a guy who's been basically in the minor leagues his entire career. He hadn't played more than 3 or 4 NHL games in a regular season, in any single regular season for the previous 6 or 7 seasons. And then just kind of, the Oilers never intended him to be really anything more than the guy in Bakersfield. It was supposed to be Campbell Skinner, and the year before that, it was supposed to be Campbell Skinner as well, and then it was Smith and Skinner before that. Like Pickard has never really figured into their plans. With the way things went with Campbell, he just happened to get the opportunity. And you see this with goalies so many times in the AHL, right? I think he's 30, he's early 30s now. I want to say he's 32. So he's not young, but then again, not necessarily super old for goalie years. I'll be interested to see. I think to me, he's still got to prove a little bit. Um, but well, like I said, what they did in that window of 5 or 6 months there was really impressive. And I'll say this for Pickard, like the fact when Skinner was struggling in the playoffs and he was able to step in and get a couple starts in that series against the Canucks and picked up a really huge win. That says a lot when you can the Oilers know that they have a guy who can step up in a big moment like that. So we'll see. There's not a lot of depth to the Oilers goaltending organization wise. So if there is going to be somebody else to step up, it's probably not in the organization right now. So they're going to have to hope to go with Skinner and Pickard.
I mean, gotta love you, Rodrigue in Bakersfield, but I don't know how close he is for NHL readiness. But
Yeah.
Pickard's probably the backup guy right now for
Mhm.
sure. All right, let's talk about the division. The Pacific Division is a pretty top, I'd say top heavy at right now. I mean, you got the Kings, Oilers, Canucks. There are some up and coming teams, but I don't think they're
Yeah.
any threat at all. Are the Oilers at the top, do you think, in the division right now, or are they kind of just in the mix of that top three, kind of the same place they were last season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be them and the Canucks again, fighting it out for 1, 2. You're right. It seems pretty top heavy. Um, you know, some of these teams that have had a few rough years, your San Jose's, your Anaheims, you got to think that sooner or later they're going to start to turn
Mm.
it around. And I think this division is going to be really tough in 2 or 3 years. I don't know if we're quite there at this point this year. So I do think it's Vancouver and Edmonton battling it out for the division, the top of the division. Vegas will be in there as well. I'm not sure what to expect from either the Kings or the Flames this year.
Mm.
So you know what? If you were to get me to make a prediction right now, I might actually say that Vancouver wins the division. Um, I think I still feel more confident with the Oilers in a 7 game series against the
Mm.
Canucks, but over 82 games, I would actually not be surprised if the Canucks win the division.
Mm. I think the question mark right now for the Canucks is Thatcher Demko. If he doesn't miss a lot of games, I mean Artur Shilov's he's a good goaltender, and we showed that in the playoffs. But I don't know. He hasn't, of course, he's very raw in the regular season. So that's, I think, the biggest question mark. I think they're going to be battling with the Oilers, though. I think it's going to be 1-2. They're going to kind of fight for that at the top. So it's going to be really fun to see how the Pacific Division goes, especially at the top with those teams. All right, let's go to our quick fire round, and these are all just quick questions, sentence or two answers for these. So let's start with our biggest storyline or question mark for the Oilers going into this season.
Ooh, biggest storyline. Can Zach Hyman repeat what he did last season?
Mm. Yeah, I mean he had such a good season. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous how many goals he's scored for the Oilers since he's signed in free agency. Probably the best free agent signing, and I don't know. It's probably up there for sure for how many goals.
Yeah, I think so. It's tough to top that. And even if he didn't score another goal in the rest of his contract, they probably still got their money's worth already.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of players that had great seasons last, so I don't know if there's any in here, but there are some, I guess. One or two breakout stars, you think, for this season?
Oh boy, breakout stars. Let's go with let's go with the Vancouver kid. The former Canuck. I like I said, he's the one out of all these young guys, he is the one that intrigues me the most.
Yeah, Podkolzin, like I don't want to because he's going to help the Oilers, but I say I want to see him have success. So I hope
But
so.
honestly, the rest of the roster's already broken out for the most part, right? Like there's not a lot of really young talent here that
True.
you're waiting to break out. They're already there.
Yeah. Dylan Holloway, of course, would have been the choice if he was still here.
Yes.
So you just
Yeah,
pick the
yeah,
guy that kind of replaces him. So there you go.
yeah.
All right, who needs to bounce back from last season? I don't know if there's a lot of candidates here, but who do you feel needs to be better?
I am going to say, man, that's a tough one. Actually, no, it's not. Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
Darnell Nurse needs to be better. Yeah, yeah. He had a tough year. A lot of it too is just he's getting paid so much
Hmm.
that to be fair, he's not living up to his contract. But that aside, he still, I think, had a pretty tough year, especially for the role he's expected to play and should be playing and has played better in the past. He needs to get back to where he was a couple years ago.
For sure, especially getting paid what, 9 million? That's pretty high for a guy that is not doing a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I What do you feel could be an X factor this season? It could be a player or it could be a situation. What do you have for an X factor?
I am going to. Definitely going to be come down to the defense, I think. And so who the X factor could be? It could be those guys that we talked about. Any of
Yeah.
those guys we talked about. And I don't know who it's going to be honest. But like someone who can come in and solidify the third pairing.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean that's a big I think big X factor is who's going to be there all season, and if it's going to be a rotating cast or are they just going to hopefully solidify one pairing that's going to be not just keep going in and out of different players. So yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch for sure. All right, let's talk some prospects, rookies. Again, there's probably not a lot of room to start the season, but do you see anyone surprising here in the rest of the preseason to kind of push their way into the lineup prospect wise?
Well, another guy I wrote about recently is Ben Gleason. He's really excited me what he's done defensively, and he could be the sleeper pick that kind of emerges to take one of those spots on the blue line. I know he's not that young, but he's pretty much spent his entire career in the AHL. He's 26 now. So if we're looking at guys that weren't on the roster that last year that are pushing for a spot, I think it would be him. And then, of course, Matthew Zator as well. Um, and Podkolzin. So,
Yeah. So there you go. That's a few guys. I don't know. Like Podkolzin probably has a spot on the roster because again, he has to go through waivers to leave. So and I don't think the Oilers are going to want to risk doing that. And he's already had a good start, so I think he's probably got a spot. But I know Savoy definitely would be. I don't know if he'd be surprised either, but yeah, for sure. All right, prospects outside of the NHL. Again, the Oilers don't have a strong prospect pool. Matt Savoy is now probably their top prospect. Who should everyone be watching this season prospect wise?
boy, I mean, they have traded away so many of their guys. There's not a lot out there. I'm trying to think of uh, the defenseman that they traded for from St. Louis. Uh, Jake something or rather. Um, I would be the first one that comes to mind. Now, this is how much of an impression he's made that I can't even remember his name right now. But that says what it is. Like they have just traded away so
Mm,
many of their prospects. And, they're very much in the win now mode.
yeah.
And if you look down once you get past, there's a few guys that are intriguing in Bakersfield. Guys like Petrov. You're
Mm.
still hoping might be able to find his game and turn into something. Lane Peterson, but Max Warner as well. But yeah, beyond that, I can't really say there's anyone that jumps out to me immediately.
Yeah, well, like their prospect pool is pretty thin. I mean, like I say, Savoy was immediately the top prospect when he was traded here, and I think he's going to remain that until they start. Like they traded their last first round pick. I mean, Sam O'Reilly, of course, was drafted this year.
O'Reilly, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
He's probably
Bo Aki as well.
yeah, he'd be a good one for sure. Yeah. I mean, there are some guys that you can probably look at, but there's not huge guys that I mean, that's the nature of a team that's in win now mode. They just don't have those
Yeah, I
guys.
mean, even guys like Xavier Bourgault,
Yeah.
he's gone now too. So and like I said, that's the way it should be, right? This is, you try and win now, and then you hope that after you hope that you do
Yeah.
win first, and then you hope that after you've won, your cupboard isn't so bare that you end up kind of in like a Detroit or Chicago
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, of course, Draisaitl just signed that ridiculous long-term contract. McDavid's probably just around the corner on it too. So they're gonna have a pretty good window to win. It's just can they build that right core around those guys? I think that's gonna be the big question.
Well, I think something that really kind of intrigues me about this is I think you kind of look at Pittsburgh, right? I mean, they've kept their two big guns all this time.
Yeah.
But obviously just having those two, even though they both, especially Crosby, has maintained his game well into the latter years of his career, but just having those two hasn't been enough to even make the playoff
Mm.
last year, right? So the fact that you have McDavid and Draisaitl for the next, however many years it ends up being, if McDavid signs an 8-year deal as well, be the better part of the next decade.
Mm.
You still got to have those pieces around them.
Yeah. I mean, Hyman, of course, has a few seasons still left too. So, I mean, they've got a window right now. It's just, I think that's what they're probably going to try to push for is the Stanley Cup within the next few years. So, we'll see. We'll see. All right. This one's probably an easy one, although, I mean, McDavid and Draisaitl is going to be both in this. Who's going to lead the team in scoring this season?
Well,
Scoring.
I mean, it'll be McDavid. I hate
Yeah.
to give you the easy answer, but anything else would be
It's true.
foolish. So,
Yeah. It's true.
you
Uh,
know, the better question is, will he lead the NHL in scoring or
there
not
you
this
go.
season?
Yeah. Did you think that he does? I I mean Kucherov did
Uh,
last season.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's some talented players out there that are putting up big numbers now, and there's some younger ones that are just getting better. So, McDavid can have an amazing season, and he might finish a few points short off the scoring race. And you know what? That's okay, right? At this point in time, I don't think he cares whether he wins the scoring race ever again, as long as he gets a ring.
Yeah, I think so. I mean that's what he wants. And he's got all the other trophies. He's got to win a cup. All right, on defense, is it Evan Bouchard? I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else you can kind of pick.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, that's an easy one. It's going to be really intriguing to see what he can do. Like, can he push for 90 points plus? Um, we're talking like some historic numbers here, like numbers only Paul Coffey has put up in Oilers history. So yeah, I think it's going to be him. This is a big year for him too, right? This contract year. So
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, what he did in the playoffs, that how many points he put up there, that if he can move that into the regular season, although he did put up a lot of points last season too, but yeah, he's really emerged as a franchise defenseman. I honestly didn't think he was gonna be that when he was drafted, and even in his earlier in his career, but he just turned a corner lately, and he's become into that echelon of the Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar type tier now. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what he can do this season and what money he gets paid too.
I mean, he should be able to command a ton of money. And what's exciting me to watch him too is I think his defensive game has improved a lot.
Hmm.
He's not in the class of some of the guys that you mentioned, maybe in terms of having being both offensively so good and equally as good defensively,
Hmm.
but he's gotten an awful lot better to the point now where he's not at all a detriment
Hmm.
on defense. And now you can just kind of, you can maximize him offensively and not have to worry about him in his other end too. So yeah, he's gonna he's gonna command a really hefty payday, especially if he puts up like a 90-point season.
Yeah, I mean Matthias Ekholm sure helped his game when he was acquired. I think that was a big
Yeah, that's a
thing.
great point. That's a great
Yeah.
point. Yep. Yep.
So I mean, we'll see. We'll see. And of course he's here for a bit too. All right, last question. You have a bold prediction or a hot take for the Oilers this season?
um People aren't going to like this, but my hot take is that they're not going to get back to the Stanley Cup final this year.
Hmm.
And that's just because it's so tough to do that, man. Like, I don't know if people realize how difficult this 32 team league now,
Yeah.
right? This is not the years of the 21 team league when the Oilers were going to the Stanley Cup every year. It's really tough to get there, and it's really tough to get back.
Mhm.
Um, I was a stat I dug up a couple weeks ago is it's been since 69 years. 1956 was the last time a team lost in 7 games in the final and got back to the final the next year, and that was Montreal, 1956. So, and it's been almost 40 years since the team even any team, win or lose, played seven games in the Stanley Cup final and got back the next year. And I think even if you just look the last few years outside of Tampa Bay, it's teams have not gone back. So it doesn't mean the Oilers are not ultimately going to win the Stanley Cup with Draisaitl and McDavid. I think they will, but I don't think it's going to be this year. So that's a take that gets me in a lot of trouble around here. but that's my honest opinion. I just
Yeah.
don't think they're going to get back. There's a lot of good teams out there, and to be able to go through that that march that path again takes a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's just so many teams that don't make the playoffs every year. I mean, that you got a team that makes the playoffs, and then they miss it the next year. I mean, so many teams they want to change, they want to be better, and it is tough to not just to get back to the playoffs again, it to make it through. I mean, it was surprising when the Lightning did it, you know, 3 times in a row getting to the final. I mean, that was insane. And the Panthers, of course, the last 2 years, won the cup and before and made the final the other year.
Mhm.
So it is tough. It has been done. I mean, recently, but it is really, really. You can't guarantee it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's the Panthers have certainly bucked that trend as well. I can't think off the top of my head. I'm probably missing somebody obvious here, but it's probably would be Chicago. Would it be
Mm.
since the last time anyone? Maybe the Kings, but even the Kings missed. I think in the Kings after they won their first Stanley Cup missed the playoffs the next year,
Believe so, and then they made it back.
and then they made it back. So that's kind of almost how it goes, right?
Yeah.
It's like and that might be the case with the Oilers. This might be they've had tremendous success. Like this is not just last year. Don't forget they went to the conference final the year before that,
Yeah.
or 2 years before that, and they went to the second round the year before too. So only the Oilers and the Panthers are the only teams that have advanced past the first round each of the last 3 seasons. They played a ton of hockey.
Mhm. And that's another thing too, is the amount of hockey you play and then trying to make it back there again is just it is tough. It is really tough. And that's of course that's what Gary Bettman wants. I mean, that's why he keeps adding teams to the league. So
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
we may
And I
have
mean, the
another
other thing I
one
think
soon.
watch for this too that it's going to be interesting this season is the Four Nation face-off, right?
Yeah.
How is that going to throw off teams? I think if you go back, the last example we kind of have anything similar to this would be the Olympic years. And those Olympic breaks sometimes kind of threw teams off and sometimes gave them a boost.
Yeah.
And the Oilers are obviously, McDavid is going to be there. Nugent Hopkins could be there. Hyman could be there on Team Canada. We'll see. So, that's just extra miles that they're putting on their tires.
Mhm. And then you're hoping that they're going to beat them on more games in the playoffs too. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. And they got the Olympics next year too. So I mean, it's just it's really a lot of hockey around. So, but yeah, the Oilers should be making the playoffs this season, and we'll see how they do once they get there. But thanks, Brian, for coming on, talking the Oilers, and as we head into this next season, which is starting really quick, we're what, a week, 2 weeks away from the regular season starting. So. It is 2 weeks today, actually. Um, but I mean, at least home, I think the season actually begins the 8th, but you got the global series and stuff like that
Yeah.
happening before that. But yeah, it's coming up quick. But make sure to check out everything at thehockeywriters.com for the Oilers coverage. Brian does articles almost every day on the Oilers, so make sure checking all that out and all the other Oilers coverage as well as and our Substack and everything else in the YouTube channel. We got all of our season previews almost done. We just got the Columbus Blue Jackets after this one, and then we've got all 32 teams out there. So make sure checking out everything as we enter the season. But until our next preview, we will see you next time.